Like Muslim women and Black people have de facto, become the face for diversity. But do you feel like that representation is always authentic?
It was almost like I had to become what I couldn't
Just
find.
do it. Allah says that He has created us in different tribes and different nations with different tongues and languages to worship Him.
A Black person will not want to put their toes together with you because a white person will not in prayer because you are Black, and it's just like, bro, ew, I don't really know you like that.
Tune in to hear Muslim women talking back like never before. This is the HSM TribeCast.
Hi guys, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the High Street Muslimnarrative TribeCast, the podcast for Muslim women by Muslim women. My name is Khadija. Today's episode explores our differences and what unites us, in our diversity. Our guests, I have a very special guest to discuss or have this conversation today. She's a storyteller extraordinaire, a multimedia producer, all-round it media girl, Aisha Salaudeen.
Thank you for having me.
Round of applause going on, right?
Thank you for having me.
How are you? How does it feel to be here?
Feels pretty good. I've been excited since before we started rolling. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too. So we always start off with like an icebreaker. 2 truths and a lie about Aisha.
Okay, 2 truths and a lie. The first one is I think that people that eat amala are psychopaths. I did not have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time to come up with this. I have 8 brothers, and what was the last one? I've lived in 8 different cities. So which one is the lie?
You've probably lived in 8 different cities. I don't know about the Amala question, but I find it hard to believe that you have 8 brothers. That's a lie.
Are you sure? Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. I'm actually good at this.
No, I think it was very obvious. This game, I struggle with it because it's either I'm extremely extreme.
What do you have against people that eat amala? How can you think they are psychopaths?
It's like sandpaper. Anybody that likes amala is a serial killer.
And it will
If you like amala, you're a serial killer. Sorry, I'm judging you.
Please, this is no judgment zone. No judgment zone. But oh my god, that's interesting. I think I would have been shocked.
If
I would have been too shocked, to be honest, why Nigeria, but yeah, that would have been very interesting.
8 brothers bias. Maybe I made it too obvious. I should have said something else.
And it's interesting that you chose that thing about living in 8 different cities.
Because that could be unbelievable as well.
Yeah, but I like that you added it because it ties in so nicely to the conversation. So tell us about that, because like for me, I think you strike me as someone who's like a mishmash of so many different personalities, experiences. So yeah, tell me about that. What was it like growing up and then 8 cities? Wow, that's a load of different lived experiences.
But in terms of growing up, I mostly just grew up in Jos.
Okay. I mean, Jos is pretty
diverse. Yes.
Yeah.
Just as I would say, Plateau State is one of the most diverse states. I don't know what it was like because I was very young, but I just knew that it was my first introduction to a lot of cultures, a lot of different kinds of people. And because I was young, I didn't have context as to what was what in terms of maybe this person is richer or poorer, or this person is cooler or not cooler.
Just all kids.
Yeah. And we had a lot of tribes, a lot of Plateau is like the state that has a lot of one of the states that has a lot of tribes. I didn't have an understanding of distinction for a very long time because that was not the reality when I was growing up in Jos. Yeah. So I think that's what it feels like just being culturally diverse. Moving to Lagos, I guess, I didn't form identity as quickly as a lot of other people because I experienced a lot of different kinds of people and things even as a child. So it took a while for me to form to form my identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the answer.
Oh, nice. And like, so as kids, as you say, nobody really pays attention to like who is who or what is what. But it gets to a stage where you now start, and I think it might be a different time in life for different people. For me, it was in high school. And maybe again, it also has to do with the type of people that you're around. But I think it was in secondary school that being started like seeping into our consciousness that, oh, this is who this person's father is. And this is who your mom is. And then just there's the cool kids, there's the people who are brilliant, there's the people who are the noisemakers. Like you have all those cliques and all those, and you're just trying to find who you are really in the mix of all of these different things. So at what point was it for you that you started to pay attention to those differences, whether real or just perceived?
I think for me it was in phases. Some of it was in Jos, but a lot of it was when I moved to Lagos. So I think my identity, the bit of it that was forged in Jos was as a result of the crisis that so Jos is much better now, much better now. But like Jos had a lot of like crisis at the time that would be forged by different reasons. And I think the very first one that I remember, my mother would be in the best position to answer if it was before. But like the very first one I remember was when I was 10. And what had happened was, the super summary what had happened was, there was like a riot had broke out between like the indigens and the non-indigens. So the indigens are like actual like Plateau State tribes, and non-indigens are were like people like me who were other tribes and came and settled. That's not a bad way to put it. And that settled in Jos. But interestingly, a lot of the non-indigens at the time were Muslim and Hausa. And so it now became a thing. Initially, it was not like religious. It was more like indigen, non-indigen. But because of that distinction, it became a thing where the Muslims started fighting the non-Muslims and vice versa. So it would be like maybe they burnt a church and then in retaliation, someone would burn a mosque. And that my identity started to form then, because then people would look at me and be like, oh, this one is Muslim, or this one is not from Jos. It's like, it didn't matter that you could speak Hausa. Hausa was actually my first language. I learned how to read and write in Hausa first before English. So, but all of that like didn't matter. And so that was like my first introduction to forming my identity. That's, oh yeah, so I'm not Hausa. I'm actually Yoruba, just living in this land that isn't even Hausa land. So that's kind of like, I guess my first, basically the summary is my first identity was forged in crisis mode. So then I started to really, really know who I was then. But then over time, like it was secondary school. So what had happened was at some point, we experienced one of the very, very serious riots, and my dad was like, it's okay, please, you should be coming to Lagos, because like it was, oh my God, it was the ghetto. And so we moved to Lagos, and then I had been enrolled to, I really loved the school. So maybe I should give them shout out, Nigerian Turkish, in Ogun State. And so we moved to, it's that thing where you live in Lagos, but then you school in Ogun State. So
that's the original boarding school, no?
Yeah. So basically I went to boarding school, basically. And then the school was my introduction. So I had no concept of whether we were rich or poor or broke. We were doing okay. But then that school was my introduction to like the really rich kids that had, like, we're talking about their trips to Paris and stuff. And I'd never entered a plane in my life, that kind of thing. So I was like, are we poor? Like I didn't. So it was my initial introduction to I want to say middle class, because we weren't poor, because like my mom was doing her master's then, definitely we had some money. So it was my introduction to like, you are not one of them, but you are also not like, I didn't know where I fit in. That's when I like started to forge my identity as a Muslim girl who speaks like different languages. So I think secondary school, that thing you said about cliques and the cool kids, not cool kids, I was definitely not one of the cool kids.
I wasn't.
I was the head Arewa girl that did not know how to speak Hausa well, that used to say ko and to in her sentences. So that was how, like, those were my introductions to like, oh, this is who I am, or this is how people perceive me to be. So yeah.
And even like moving ahead beyond that identity, let's talk about like brief career evolution. I think you also brought that into that career phase. I know you have a background in accounting or business.
Yes, both.
In school. the conventional Nigeria
Yeah.
story. You study one thing and then you
You're doing another thing.
and then you moved into media and then tech and then tell us about that.
I think it was a lot of, right from time, I always knew I wanted to do media. I just didn't have the language for it. So when it was time to finally get into university, you know, when you write your first choice, your second choice, all of that. I'd written mass communication. And I remember my dad saying, are you sure mass communication? You know that you might not really get like a job like that. But I didn't feel convinced enough in my decision in mass communication to even try to fight it. And my dad is an economist. He also did finance. So I was like, you know what? He has a successful career. Like I wasn't, so let me just do it.
I invested enough.
Exactly. I just liked the idea of it. So it wasn't even that I tried and maybe they said no. I didn't bother. So then I found myself studying it. But like I tell you, my first year in uni, that's first accounting class. I was like, God, what have I done? So that was when I realized, Khadija, like, I hope my mom does not watch this podcast, but like, I used to sleep in class. I shall wake up. Like, I knew that I was in trouble. So after like I clocked that sleeping in class would become a thing, I immediately started to think about what I really wanted to do. And I started taking I actually like media thing more seriously. And I think the catalyst was randomly, my friend used to work for the school radio then, and I had followed her on one occasion, and I had enjoyed it so much, and I had contributed. And the producer I can't remember if I was the one that said I'd like to do this or he was the one. But it was a thing of come and be on the radio. And so like it was just next steps. I was taught how to use it. And I just started doing the radio in school. And I realized I liked it. So I was like, you know what? This media thing that I had mentioned earlier should have been what I had insisted on. So my kind of way of establishing balance was do the finance and the accounting and all of that. And then have like your media. And I went on to start writing. I think then it was like more of writing articles. And I would send it to Nigerian newspapers. Because when I would write, people would be like, oh, this is actually well thought out. So I clocked that, oh, maybe I can write too. And then it just became a thing where like I started building capacity in media. Once I graduated, I knew I was like, I worked briefly as an accountant, but even then I knew that I was not going to do that. Yeah.
You know, I can so relate to that because so my mom, this was my mom, not my dad. I also was interested in mass comm. Somehow got cajoled and convinced to do law. And in the first year, I was lucky because in the first year of law at Unilag, you don't start immediately with like law courses. You're doing poetry, you're doing computer, like it's a very wide ranging, you're learning English, even computer technology. So it was very broad. And then it's from year 2, 200 level that you actually start going into legal courses. So I scaled through year 1. Great. Then in year 2, I was like, oh my God. So for me, the things that I looked forward to the most was just ensure, first of all, that you don't fail. Secondly, I love to dress up. So the black and white, I enjoyed finding ways to wear. And then thirdly, like you, I actually started finding things that I enjoyed. So we started a LSS, Law Student Society, editorial. I think it was a monthly editorial. And then I started editing for that. So it was really nice. When I came out eventually, I was like, do I really want to do law school? Again, my mom was like, you've already started. You
graduated, right?
Feel all righteousness. And that's how I found myself. Qualified as a lawyer. Probably practiced for all of 1 year and then went back. But then, how did you then, was it straight out of school? Okay, no, you did accounting for a bit.
So I studied business economics for my BSc. I should have known, and then I went on to do masters in finance, accounting, and management. I should have known. Let me tell you, after I finished my BSc, you will not believe it, I did so well. My school was like, let's give you scholarship to do masters. I was like, I'm not going to go and tell my father that they gave me scholarship. And then I now said no. Do you know what it means to do scholarship in the University of Bradford? I said, I don't want to, I will do it so that I can have like that foreign master's degree. Yeah. But even as I was doing it, it was just do your best to pass. But by the time who says no to that? So I came back with one thing in mind. I must do this media thing, but I must prove to my parents that I didn't waste their energy and time and resources. So I started out like easy peasy. They're like, you have to do ACCA, become a chartered accountant. I'm like, okay, cool. Get a job, cool. I did accounting for all but 3 weeks and I quit because this sleeping thing, I used to sleep on my desk.
Gen Z is not having anything on you. 3 weeks.
3 weeks and I resigned. I didn't even tell my dad because how can I tell him? I'll be going to the island to do nothing. So I was essentially pursuing how I did it with my journalism was I started like following all the journalists that I really cared about and was telling them my story. Like, guys, this is what's happening. I need to become a journalist fast because I don't want my parents to find out what I've been doing. And I was living at home, so it's hard to hide these things. Yeah. So I just worked on building capacity. Remember that I had freelanced with like newspapers because I was writing those articles when I was in school. So I used it to like pitch myself and pitch and like take courses and get those journalists that I really respected to show me the ropes. And like over time, I started freelancing for like international media publications. That was the happiest day of my life. The day that I got that Al Jazeera article, I just went to my dad, Daddy, I'm not doing accounts. Before he could I was like, by the way,
I have receipts.
I'm on Al Jazeera. So like he didn't have time to react to the, what do you mean you are not doing accounts? Like, see, your daughter is on Al Jazeera. And then over time, it just became like a thing. And so I built capacity and I knew in my heart of hearts that media was what I wanted to do. And I just started to extend it. So from journalism, I started doing video production, produced TV shows and documentaries. Now I've made a film. So like I've just been extending my capacity. I think that's I guess how I evolved in
tech. Because
yes,
that media is also kind of evolving tech-wise.
Yes.
Like so many.
So how I found myself in tech is you realize that after you've done media for 7 years and you're doing the same thing over and over, sometimes you can get tired. So I woke up like early last year, and I was like, it felt like it was becoming mundane, a routine. Like I wake up, I know what we're producing today. I know what we're going out to film. I know what the show is going to, because we had like weekly shows every time. It was the same pattern, repetition.
Like going through the motion.
Imagine doing that for years. I was tired. And because like you're working in a newsroom where you're bound by certain standards, you don't have the liberty to be creative and try something. You can't say, oh, can we try this with the shots? That's not how it works. So I was like, you know what, where else can I use my current skill set somewhere new and challenging, but like they would value someone that understands media. And it was tech. So I was like, let me use my skills to tell stories in tech, stories of businesses versus in conventional journalism or media production. And so it just made sense. And so like, I mean, it took a while, but I finally like landed, like, I mean, I'm a tech girl now. So I finally, like, I'm doing the same thing, but just like, instead of like journalism or media production, like, it's like, I'm telling the stories of like a business. I'm building capacity in that sense. So it's all related. Still, I'm never leaving media. But it's like, how else can I build capacity in different industries and fields using this media thing? Basically.
I like how you just glossed over, I was in a newsroom that had certain standards. Guys, Aisha was in CNN. She was producer for what was it, the African, sorry, what was it?
The official title was producer of editorial sponsorships. So you produce all our Africa shows, but for West Africa. So Inside Africa, African Voices, Changemakers, all of So those were the shows that I was producing at the time.
And at the time, like, I don't want to assume, like, did you have like a lot of people that looked like you within that sector or within that organization? Like, how did it feel getting there? Did you feel different?
No, I didn't, because I had a lot to prove. So like when I first moved to media, I worked at Stairs for 1 year before CNN came knocking. I didn't have enough time to think about, like, there aren't a lot of like visibly Muslim hijabi women then, but I didn't have the luxury of like thinking about that because I had a lot to prove. Like when I moved to CNN, I wasn't doing like core journalism. I mean, after a while, I was moved to start doing production. I had never done that. So I was like, yes, I can't see the representation I need, but I didn't have time to think about that. It was almost like I had to become what I couldn't find.
Do it.
Yeah, I had to become that representative. And the good thing about like the CNN team in Nigeria is that we had a lot of female representation. There's just one guy in that entire team. So I didn't feel left out in the sense that at least there are other women here. It was like a super team of women. Like you would see our camera, like, babe, like she's running around like as a woman, like so I didn't feel it as much. It's just later when you've had time to relax and chill, then you now start thinking, I'm the only Muslim woman here. I'm like, but honestly, I have like privilege in the sense that I was lucky. It wasn't a thing that came with like microaggressions or anything. Nobody cared. People let me do pretty much what I wanted. It was more for them. It's more about, can you do the work? Yes. No one cared really, to be honest. And I didn't at the time because like I said, I had a lot to prove. So I was my headspace was somewhere else, basically. Yeah.
In theory, that's something I keep hearing in terms of like being different, or nobody focuses on it. It doesn't count as much when you offer value. Like, as long as you're offering something that I'm interested in and I think you're very good at, people don't focus as much on, the fact that you don't exactly look like us or...
It depends, but you are largely right. Yes.
Exactly, because what I was then going to touch on was, so I get that in your experience, it didn't feature as much. But when you talk about like the broader media narratives, yes, diversity became a buzzword like maybe 7, 8 years ago. Everybody was talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. And yeah, we try to bring out all of that representation. Like Muslim women and Black people have de facto, become the face for diversity. But do you feel like that representation is always authentic? Because you talked about representation, and even though within your immediate circle it wasn't really, but from a broader media narrative perspective, is that representation of Muslim women always authentic?
Not always. I think that it's one of the big struggles with the media where all the minority groups don't feel like their representation is authentic. So this doesn't just cover Muslim women. It's how they even talk about Black people, for example, Africans, for example. So like in my immediate environment, for example, protected me. But like you go out, like you have like trainings, workshops, you associate with people, and then you start to get a sense of how people portray, how people think about you. So in my immediate circle, I'm protected, like there's that privilege. And then when I go outside and touch grass, like you start to hear narratives of like, I mean, there's been people that have asked me, and particularly when I started like properly, well, I don't want to say properly, but when I started wearing like the hijab or like my scarf, like people would be like, you just hear microaggressions like, oh, na woman, she fit shoots, like can she even hold the camera, like can she film, can she shoot, like stuff like that. And you're like, it takes a while because I'm covered. I'm like, oh, it's because, then you start to clock like, oh, it's because of this. And then there's like this picture of what a Muslim woman should or shouldn't do. And then people then take their stereotypes and make it like the overarching narrative, for example, in media. And so the answer to your question is, it's not always authentic. There's the Muslim woman who, in the middle of a movie, will then take off like her hijab because she has been liberated. Or there's like the fashion brand in some ad that is making something specific for Muslim women. It does not consider that sometimes they might want to wear long sleeves, for example, stuff like that. It helps a lot.
About giving them it's like you said, like in movies or in whatever, sometimes you're seeing that, but how is it even translating economically? I think it's just everybody jumping on the trend and trying to make a good buck because there's that audience. But a lot of times, in terms of, you might see a Muslim woman in a role in there's a particular TV series that comes to mind from some years back. I won't mention it. It was an action, like an action type. And then you have the Muslim women that you're representing, but you're not actually like giving it to Muslim women to be represented in that role.
I see.
We know that, yes, there are a number of them that will not come on screen, but there are actually quite a number of Muslim actors as well. So in terms of that representation, I think it's two things. If we're going to take, for instance, media as a case study, it's how are you portraying them on screen? That's the narrative. But it's also the economics of it.
I see.
Like, how is it actually trickling down into actual economic power for the audience that you're trying to represent?
So in terms of like Muslim women, the people that you're trying to represent, being a part of those opportunities, even economically, I think that we're on the right track, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So what I mean is, even in like the media, representation is different ways. It would be nice if you do, but you don't actively have to have like, for example, the Muslim act or act it. What about you could have them as consultants, for example, so that when you are doing weird stuff on set,
They can
be
tell
like,
you that makes no sense.
that's not a thing. For example, I do see, and I say that like it's changing slowly, because I do see like people doing work actively in that, in that regard, but it's nowhere near what should be done. And like, I do agree that sometimes it's like businesses are just using it like, oh, let's use the 2 hijabis that we have in this company. Meanwhile, we never actually do anything for hijabis, or we never actually, those opportunities don't trickle to them. Yes, that's happening. But I do see like small changes happening. And I think the way that things might slowly change is for businesses, corporations to think about, you are making a show, for example, for Muslim women or you're representing Muslim women significantly in a show. If the audience that you're making that thing for does not feel represented, your second season is going to tank because they don't relate to what you're saying. So you should I think businesses need to pause and actively think about how it could impact them in the long run if the audience you're making something for does not even feel represented or does not care. Like, it's common sense. Like,
you would think.
Fair.
You would think. And not to like belabor that point, but it's also how, again, I'm going to come back to media and stuff like films, because it's just the easiest thing to relate to. It's what you said earlier, like Muslims, especially Muslim women, like they're diverse. They do different things. They always. But do you realize how even when you were represented in shows, it's always from like a very specific character. Okay, sometimes it's it's the terrorist's wife. Yeah. Or it's the rogue, whatever that goes, or a spy or
liberated
something.
At the end and takes off a scarf.
Yes, but like, they're very normal, everyday characters. Like, they are doctors, they are nurses, they are gym instructors, they are teachers. Like, it's hard to just find them in a normal, regular, everyday role. It's always like just so niche, almost like you created it specifically to fill a purpose.
We don't have enough of like accurate representation. It's gonna take a while.
Yeah,
but like the answer to the question is we don't have as much authentic Muslim stories as we should. Period. Like, it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. A lot of people think that the easiest way to like navigate diversity differences is to just, forget about them. They get in the way, like, just forget about the differences and let's just, go along as one big family.
What do you mean forget about? Pretend they're not there?
Yes, that's how I see it. And then like one historic conversation that comes to mind is the one that was reported between Zik and the Sardauna of Sokoto, where, what was the context again? But then Zik then goes, you know what, let's just forget about our differences. And then Sardauna was like, no, let us seek to understand our differences. But it could be quite easy, really, to just, differences get in the way of things. They bring about division. And sometimes understanding it is a very hectic process that I think some people would rather just shy away from. But like, from your perspective, what makes the most sense, to forget or like try and understand differences?
I don't even know what it means to forget. What do you mean?
Ignore them.
What do you mean forget our difference?
Ignore them. Like, okay.
Ignore that someone is, say, maybe a minority like Black, Muslim.
Yeah, like, let me not engage with you on that level at all. Like, you're just a person, right? But what it means, I think, is that ultimately you might unintentionally like say something or do something that doesn't take into account that, look, this person is actually not the same as you, but you gloss over that because you're like, oh, let's not rock the boat. Let's just...
But beyond that, even on a structural level, that makes no sense to me personally. Maybe other people will have different... Like, it doesn't make sense to ignore minorities and pretend like we don't have differences. We very clearly have fundamental differences. I think like the approach, as with many other things in life, is to try to understand how we are all diverse as human beings and try to figure out ways around that. It's how, and like diversity here, it's how, like, knowing how one person or one tribe or one, when I say tribe, I mean a group of people versus actual tribes, like how they are different. So you know that there are fundamental things that a Muslim woman, for example, might not do. She might not go to a rave with you, like, because that's not her thing. She might not, likely not eat pork or drink alcohol. Like, what the right thing to do would be when you are buying that, maybe you buy malt for her or something, versus ignoring. It's like it makes more sense to understand those differences as long as they are not harming anyone, and like, versus like walking around
Just,
it. That's
yeah,
not even
skirting.
because that's not equity, for example. So in the context of, like, say, a workplace, or like, or what we're talking about, like the media, instead of ignoring those differences of what like women look like, because ignoring those differences will now lead to stereotypes, why don't you try to understand, or like, as a Muslim woman, this is what authenticity means to this Muslim woman, and we're going to try to fit that into our narrative versus pretending it doesn't exist. It genuinely makes no sense to me.
It ideally, right? But now there's actually arguments that diversity and, diversity initiatives, etc., are causing more harm than good. For instance, for instance, in the US, you now have schools and legislation against diversity programs, against diversity initiatives, like. And the argument, from what I understand, is that thing, like diversity quota or diversity hire or whatever, is almost a form of discrimination in and of itself against the people who do not belong to that class, which is funny to me, right? Because it's supposed to be to create some sort of level playing field for people who might not necessarily have those opportunities. But there's actual legislation being passed now that is saying, anything that has to do with like diversity, or specifically what's it called, geared towards certain people on the basis of race or faith or whatever, it's not legal.
But I do not agree that diversity has done more harm than good. That I don't think that is factual. And here's why, right? Let's even use a simple example in the context of, I hate that I'm saying white people, black people, because we're in Nigeria, but like, let's use this in the context of like white people. White people have had a head start for decades before black people. And so there was a time where you'd see all white schools, right? And like, at that time, it made sense in the context of diversity to then have all black schools, so that black people can have a head start as that white people have enjoyed for in education. Yes. What I don't believe is having that continuously forever. If it has served its purpose, then let it go. But then to then say that giving the opportunities to people who don't have those opportunities is doing more harm than good, it's such a privileged thing to say. It's the same thing in the context of Muslim. Let's come back to like where we are now with Muslim women. It's like saying, okay, I think I'll give an example. There was a tech company, maybe I shouldn't say the name of the company, that realized that when they said engineers needed, more men applied. But when they said female engineers, please apply too, then more women started to apply. I'm just trying to give this as an example of how you can introduce diversity in small ways that encourages women to apply. So imagine.
And actually, a lot of job applications now, you see, they will say people with disabilities and females are strongly encouraged.
Because people will not think to apply. Like, so imagine in that scenario, someone saying like it's discrimination to specifically say women should apply. You are giving a head start to this group that is like a minority that doesn't see themselves in such roles or such places like engineering. What do you mean? What do you mean that's doing more harm than good? Quite frankly, I find it ridiculous to say those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's people that have privilege that would most likely say, or people that cannot relate. So you're not strongly part of that minority.
Again, it's
and
from
like
privilege.
Yeah, like come on.
Yeah.
Like, please, let's be serious.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about like from an external standpoint, looking in what it looks like diversity for us, representation in global audiences, etc. But from like within and coming back to faith, right? Diversity is something that goes even into the Quran itself. Allah says that He has created us in different tribes and different nations with different tongues and languages to worship Him. So it's that diversity is established right there in the sense that well, God was very intentional about creating us as different people, as opposed to just making us all one monolith, right? But when we look inwards, us as Muslims ourselves, do we really embrace this diversity that we want to enjoy from external audiences? Like, how do we relate within ourselves? Even like interculturally, we still find a lot of those traditional nuances come into play. So do you think that we are as tolerant or as accepting of our own differences before we start talking about?
No. On a theological level, on a theoretical level, yes. On a practical level, no. So what I mean is, in theory, it's what you said about like being like like Allah creating us like super diverse. Even like at the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and people that were Muslims like were diverse. We had the Persians, we had Arabs, we had Jews, we had blacks. So in that sense, and at that point, like nobody would say like an Arab is more, I don't know, is going to heaven because they're Arab versus like a black person. You are not going to heaven. At that time, like it was clear that we're all equal in that sense in the eyes of Allah. On it, like in theory, right? But then as a personal prejudice started to set in, it's why now like an Arab person will look at a black person and be like, you're not as Muslim as, or even bringing it to Nigeria here. It's why like if you are say like from the southwest, for example, there could be microaggressions like
why not
from the
Muslim though?
Yes, from Northerners will look at you and be like, or some Northerners will look at you and be like, yeah, you're not Muslim enough. So theoretically, like in theory, yes, we embrace that diversity, but in real life, our personal prejudice like has seeped in, where a black person will not want to put their toes together with you because they are. White person will not in prayer because you are black, and it's just like, bro, ew, I don't really know you like that. Or where someone from another part of the country will look at you and be like, you're not Muslim enough. I think that we are not as tolerant. We like to say that we're tolerant because theoretically, yes, the Quran, says that we should be, but look around you. We're really not. Even to like people that are not on the same faith wavelength with us.
Yeah.
You see how
people coming to that because we all have different faith journeys.
Exactly. Like people are mean to non-hijabis, for example. Like people will say all kinds of things that would make them feel like maybe I'm actually quite a terrible Muslim. Like, so the answer to the question is, please, we're not as tolerant or as inclusive as we think we are, even just on the same wavelength of culture and dynamics in faith.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a function of religiousness versus spirituality. And we always try to make that distinction because it's the performative part of it that we fixate on in how, am I better than this person? Are they better than me? Or I'm better than this person versus just focus on your personal spiritual journey.
Many things. It's a function of our environment, how we grew up, where we grew up. It's a function of other parts of society seeping into religion. For example, it's a function of racism that an Arab person will say, I'm better than you as a Muslim because I'm Arab and because at the time of the Prophet there are many in time of there were many Arabs. That's like another part of society seeping into religion. It's like racism. It's a function of like environmental, like social conditioning where, I didn't grow up in Hausa land, but I grew up in the north where people would even like upon finding out that I'm not Hausa, even though I've been speaking Hausa with you this whole time, we'll be dressed in the same. It's suddenly like, this one is not really
the balance.
She's not really Muslim enough. Ita Yorubachi, that kind of like they're just like, nah, she's Yoruba or that kind of thing. So it's a function of a lot of things. There could be that argument of religiosity where people are now taking it overboard and like thinking that because maybe I wear the hijab, for example, I'm better than, and maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Like you don't. Bro, like you're not God, you don't know that. So there's definitely, it's a function of multiple things. There's definitely the arrogance of also, because I'm more Muslim presenting than you, for example.
Yeah.
I'm definitely better than you when you don't even know the person, you don't know their hearts. Honestly, it's many things in one.
Many layers.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the end of the conversation. I don't want it to end. But what does real non-performative, diversity and inclusion look like for Muslim women? One that's not like based on just, tokenism, we're just doing it just because, or ticking a box or some diversity quota. What would that look like in an ideal world?
It looks like, first of all, understanding what it even means. When we say authentic Muslim, what exactly are we even talking about? It looks like, whether it's corporations, the media, I don't know, people taking away their bias and their stereotypes, that a Muslim woman looks this way, a Muslim woman is going to marry a terrorist, a Muslim woman, I don't know. It's understanding what that authenticity means. And the way to do that is to put more people who have experienced, who are Muslims and who are women and who practice in those spaces. Yeah. So it's as simple as that. You are not going to understand you are not going to understand a tribe or a religion from outside or without interacting with those people there.
Yeah.
So start with that. If you're producing a TV show about Muslim women, do you have enough Muslim women that you are checking your biases, like that you're running stuff by? Is this a fair thing to say? Like in my story, is this a fair representation of what your experience would be like? Yeah. So corporations, people have to start even understanding. When you are in a company and you tell the Muslim woman that she must come for the company rave or dinner or party, you don't have a full understanding of how what it means to be a Muslim by even saying that. Or it's as simple as, is there a space for her to pray when it's like 1:45 p.m.? All those little things. That, like, it doesn't, when people think about representation and diversity for Muslim women, they think is the big thing.
Yeah.
Automatically.
No, it starts in the little things.
Bro, it's those little things. And it starts with understanding what it means to be an authentic Muslim woman. And then that's how people are going to, so that when you have 2 hijabis on your website and that it looks performative, but when you have 2 hijabis on your website, but internally, there's a move to even understand hijabis, make a prayer space for them, all these small things. You're not discriminating against them because they wear hijab. That is the real diversity versus, oh yeah, I'm just going to put like stereotype on TV. So the summary of what I'm trying to say is understanding that what it means to be an authentic Muslim person.
Yeah, we'll come back to that, understanding the differences. And I think it's through things like this also, just talking more, like you rightly said, putting them in spaces where they have agency over their own stories. And
about enforcement, to be honest.
Enforcement.
Excuse me. So what I mean is, it's like what that tech company did, where they realized that they were bombarded by a lot of male engineers. They know that there are lots of women engineers too. So in their recruitment, they made a conscious effort to hire strictly women. They already have enough men.
Yeah.
So, like, in that case, you're like, it's not a bias because you're hiring qualified people. What is the equivalent of that for Muslim women, for example? So it's where I'm producing a movie, a TV show about women. Can I make a conscious effort to make sure that the crew on that set are also Muslims that are like fully represented? For example, that kind of thing. So that's what I mean by enforcement. Maybe that's not the right adjective or the right word. But like beyond even having conversations, finding what authenticity
in the
is,
actual
like,
implementation.
Hire the minority that you want diversity, you want more Black people. Make it clear that you're hiring for this role for this reason. Put them in those places, because to be honest, you cannot become what you can't see. I told you, for example, the reason why I was, one of the reasons, at least primary reasons why I was able to make my movie was because I saw my friend Korede
doing it.
I went on set, like when I was at CNN, we filmed, she was shooting in Jos with Kenneth Gang. And I saw how she was on set with her hijabi Muslim woman. She was the director. And it seems minor and trivial and ridiculous. But like, that's just when you are able to see. And I'm like, bro, I feel run out now. Like, do you know what I mean? So we need more of that so that we can be able to see ourselves. It's the same thing when you see a Muslim anchor with the hijab on TV and you're like, me too.
Can do it.
That's small.
Yeah.
That's
so you just need to see it.
Exactly.
In order to. Thank you so much, Aisha. This was amazing, as expected. Thank you to everyone. Please like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this or learned 1 or 2 things, or if there's someone you've been trying to have this conversation with, like your boss or HR at work. You can just forward them a link without saying anything. But until next time, remember to enjoy life, love, faith on your own terms. Bye.